Well, good evening. I'm Jeremy from Dunedin band Civil War Corpse, and I've allowed myself to get a little behind the eight ball. If there is an eight ball, perhaps it's an imaginary eight ball, but I've, since we, Civil War Corpse, started releasing some of the songs that we've been recording over the past couple of years, I've been trying to do a video like sort of every week or so, and since putting out the last song, a song called The Ballad of Frosty Jack, I have done exactly no videos. Why has that been? Just life has gotten in the way, if you want to think of it in those terms. I've had a lot going on, I've been tired, things to do, and it just, and then 3 weeks passed. And so I thought, far out, if I keep releasing one song roughly a month, as I've been doing, well, then I'll release the next song before I've even done anything talking about this last song. So that's not really consistent with my plan so far. So this evening I thought I would talk a little bit about The Ballad of Frosty Jack. So it's, as I say, it's the third song that we've released. I'll start out just talking about how I wrote it, and depending on how that long takes, maybe I'll talk a little more about some other things to do with it. So there's a bit of a story behind this. One of my favorite singers, songwriters, musicians is Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. And Chris Cornell very sadly passed away some years ago. I can never remember if it was 2016 or 17. I think it was 2017. And I can still remember where I was. I was sitting on our couch. We lived in a different part of the country at that time. And I think I was playing guitar, or I was sitting on the couch anyway, and I might have been playing Xbox or something. And my wife was using our laptop, and she looked up and said to me, "Chris Cornell's just died." And it was the first time that a famous person, let's say, has died. And it's, I guess for want of a better way of saying it, it's mattered to me. You know, not that other people don't matter, but it's the first time that I think that a famous person who I had some kind of interest in had died, and it affected me emotionally. And I was really bummed out, and I still am in a way, because he was a unique talent. His vocal range was incredible. He was in some of my favorite bands, Soundgarden, Temple of the Dog. He did his solo stuff, which was varied and interesting, and yeah, so some of his songs that I heard early on, when I was a teenager, really just blew my mind. One of them, the first one I think was a song called "Like Suicide," which is the second last track on the Soundgarden album, Super Unknown. But there's another song called "Seasons," which features on the soundtrack to the movie Singles, which is just incredible. And there's a Soundgarden song on there as well called "Birth Ritual," which musically, it might not be your thing, but wow, his vocal range is it's wild. And then there was there's other Soundgarden stuff, the Temple of the Dog album, which I absolutely love. And so to have someone like that die so unexpectedly, at such a young age, I think he was 52, I was pretty bummed. And I remember the first thing that popped into my head was, gosh, I should try to learn how to play Like Suicide. And so I did. I didn't learn it, but I set about. I started taking some steps towards learning it. And what I quickly found out was that it was in a very unusual tuning. guitars are typically tuned to what's called standard tuning, which is E, A, D, G, B, E. Like Suicide is, I think it's like D, G, D, G, B, C. Very weird. So so the song starts out like this. And that's the bit I've got good. As I started to try to learn the rest of it, I very quickly went, okay, no, I'm not going to do this justice. And even if I could, I can't sing the way he sings. I'd be doing myself and Mr. Cornell a disservice by trying to learn the song. But this tuning intrigues me. So this guitar, it remains in that tuning. I bought this guitar 6 years ago, 7 years ago maybe. And this is the tuning it's in. That's the only tuning I keep it in, and it sounds amazing. The Ballad of Frosty Jack is written in this tuning on this guitar. And it wasn't the first song that I wrote with this tuning, but it might have been the second. And I was just noodling around, and I think maybe I might have been thinking at the time that I liked that I'd love to write something, write a guitar part that reminded me of like Suicide, or maybe I was just unconsciously thinking, stuff like that. But at any rate, one night I came up with this. Very undeliberately, just noodling around. Because of course, with an odd tuning like this, none of the normal chord shapes apply. I can play D. Well, that sounds nice, but it's not D. I can play a G. Okay, well that's a thing, but whatever it is. Here's C. Well, that's pretty cool, but it's not C. So I spent a long time, sorry, I can let you know. I spent a long time just exploring, and trying different shapes and to this day, I still am to some extent. I don't know what any of the chords are that I play on this guitar. I just know I've got a bunch of different shapes that sound nice, and then the rest of it I just kind of make it up, which is, well, that's more or less what I do with a guitar that's in standard tuning. But I came up with this. And now you might not like it, but I thought it was pretty magical. And I still do. I love the way those notes sound together. And so it developed from there. And obviously the song has some other parts. There's a musical interlude that goes. There's a string in there that's slightly out, but that's okay. So yeah, you can listen to the song on the Civil War Corps YouTube channel. Yes, I'm not going to talk about, like take you through every little step. You listen to the song, you'll get it. But yeah, it started out with just that bit. And I thought, that's real simple, but there's a song in that. There's something there. And it's always been important to me that the lyrics and music should work together. There should be call it an emotional constancy, or maybe not constancy, synchronicity. the lyrics should match the music. They should make sense together. One should be an extension of or a complement to the other. and I can still remember where the start of the song came from. I couldn't say that I started writing the lyrics the same night that I started writing the music. I don't believe that's the case. I think I had sort of, at least part of the song worked out musically. But I remember going into our kitchen, and it was July in New Zealand, Central Otago. It's freezing cold, and the damn kitchen window was open. You pay for firewood, you spend hours splitting it, stacking it. What do people do? They just leave the window open in the middle of winter in the evening, because why not? And I remember going, oh my gosh, shut the damn window. and it was more, I'd love to say that in that moment it all came to me. It might not have, but basically in and around that interaction with the window, maybe it was after I went back and picked up my guitar and started playing. But the first lyric came into my head, and it was literally, a deathly chill creeps through the window, a hoarfrost in July. I went, oh, that's cool. That sounds dark and cold. I can work with that. Excuse me. And so I went from there. And while I'm not going to sit here and tell you, what the song's about, if you listen to the lyrics of the song, hopefully you'll sort of get it, that the idea of the cold is, it essentially becomes a metaphor of sorts. And, you can make of it what you will, but I've always loved it. I was very excited when I finished the song. To me, it felt like, to use video game terminology, like my character had leveled up. I really felt like I had tapped into something that was new, new to me at least, something that was different, like my songwriting had begun to evolve. Because I hadn't written a song like that before, musically or lyrically, and I was, and I still am really proud of it. So this was the last or the second last song that we began work on in terms of recording. And I really didn't know what to do with it. I knew I wanted it on the record, and I knew it was a great song. But in terms of additional instrumentation, I had nothing. No ideas at all. I knew I wasn't going to put like guitar solos and stuff on it. It wasn't that kind of song. So we recorded it, the guitar and a scratch vocal. And Andrew, my friend who's done the drums for all the songs, he came around one day and we had to play around with it, and he's he's a fantastic drummer, fantastic musician, but he really wasn't sure what to do with it, and I wasn't sure what to do with it, and we ended up coming to the conclusion that, well, why don't we just go out to Matt's, go to the studio, and Andrew would just record a bunch of cymbal splash stuff and some kick and some snare, and Matt and I could then just kind of mess around with it and try to come up with something. And so we did that. And from there, basically Matt and I just thought, okay, well, if you listen to the song, it sort of alternates, I think, between the kick and the snare, and the kick and the snare. And so we put a lot of reverb on those and really kind of ground them down. Like if you listen to the drums, it sounds really muffled and weird. That's deliberate. It's not a mistake. And kind of messed around with the cymbals and came up with some stuff and did some funny sort of, I don't even know how you talk about it technically, but kind of flipping things back over on themselves and, creating swells where there weren't any before and stuff like that. And so that was quite interesting for me, just to watch Matt at work and for us to listen to things and go, oh, well, why don't we try this? Yeah, so it's in some ways, it's the most, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but the most produced song on the record, in the sense that all the other songs, it's drums, guitars, bass, piano, guitars. Everything's pretty organic. But this song, yeah, we really messed around with it and yeah, just we did some weird production stuff, which I'm really stoked with. I love how it sounds. And then yeah, so once we had the drums sorted out, and we had to do the whole thing to a click track. It was really, because what we discovered was that the verses and the instrumental parts, the interludes, were actually in slightly different timing. I can't remember when we worked that out. I think it was when we were trying to record, and just something. It might have even been when I was doing the guitar originally. We worked out there's something not right here. It wasn't working. Because I think we decided to have a click track because the picking is very, very straight, and we thought, okay, we need that to be real spot on. But then I'd get, as we got further through the song, worse and worse it would sound, and yeah, and this, as I say, we eventually worked out that there were actually 2 different timings involved. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing. Yeah, so we did the bass, and then I did some lead guitar parts, just to sort of add a bit of texture, sort of some play into the atmosphere of it. Yes, I think that's kind of it. That's the Ballad of Frosty Jack, and funnily enough, most of the guitar parts I think were done in July, and it was a freezing cold night, and there was a cold wind blowing outside. There wasn't a hoar frost because we're in Dunedin. And then as it worked out, we released it in July as well, which wasn't really deliberate. It was just funny that it worked out that way. Yeah. So as far as that goes, that's it. If you haven't listened to it, go and listen to it. As I say, it's one of my favorite songs. I couldn't say why. But it's just one I really love. I guess it's a strange song, and I like that. Speaking of strange songs, possibly one of the reasons why it's been so long since I did another video is that I've been slightly preoccupied with writing new songs, which came about very unexpectedly. But yeah, in the last month or so, it might be 6 weeks, I've written 4 new songs, which I'm really stoked about. I'm stoked to have written 4 new songs, but I'm also really stoked about the songs themselves. A couple of them were written on this guitar, and then the other 2 were written on my other acoustic guitar in standard tuning. And at some point they will surface. But yeah, it's just when the juices get flowing and things start happening, I tend to that's where I go. But as I say, sort of 3 weeks passed. I went, oh crumbs, I should probably do something to sort of follow up a little bit. So that's the Ballad of Frosty Jack. Have a nice week, and you'll see me again whenever you see me, hopefully in the not entirely distant future. Good night.